4 stars. Been a while since we've gotten those, am I right? But somehow, despite the fact that our last 4-star unit was Moze, like almost 2 years ago, I've been noticing a quiet resurgence of 4 stars ever since version 4.1, starting with Ashfield's release. You might think this is weird to say. After all, isn't Honkai Star Rail the land of power creep where full teams of 5 stars are just the baseline for endgame nowadays? In fact, 5 stars have become so normalized at this point that longtime returning players get to choose 2 E0S1 fully built 5 stars to bring to endgame for the first 3 weeks upon coming back. No strings attached, just a time limit. Speaking of strings, I don't know about Aglaya having a proper endgame build per se, but 67 crit rate is still miles better than the trial build trash we usually get. But even with Hoyo having discontinued 4-star long ago and handing out free 5 stars like candy, not to mention giving pretty much every 5-star nowadays crazy eidolons on top of that, there are certain characteristics locked behind these forgotten rarities that no amount of 5-star copies could ever hope to replicate. And believe it or not, those 4-star traits are in high demand for the meta units right now, making them the pinnacle of low-cost runs, and sometimes even letting them serve an irreplaceable niche for certain infinites or zero-cycle setups. For this video, we'll be covering 3 different reasons why certain 4 stars can still earn their positions in top teams in the Big 26, including rare stat buffs, exclusive identities, and frequent follow-up attacks. I will throw up a bit of a disclaimer first though that effectively using 4 stars nowadays either requires high amounts of game knowledge, running a sustainless team, grabbing limited eidolons on some of the latest 5 stars instead, or some combination of all 3. But before we get into things, here's a quick word from the sponsor of today's video. If you're looking for a safe and secure way to top up on your favorite gacha games while still getting a big discount on your purchases, Enjoy GM has got you covered. New users will automatically get a discount off their first purchase, and all you need to enter is your UID and server. No other information or passwords required. This includes first-time top-up bonuses, of course, and from my experience, it takes no longer than a few minutes for your purchases to show up in-game, saving on every single purchase you make. Enjoy GM is also PCI DSS certified, which means that transactions on their website are 100% secure. Check out my exclusive link in the description or pinned comment below, and start saving today. Now, back to the video. Starting with rare stats, despite the premium supports of today giving you what seems like every buff under the sun, there are 2 stat increases in particular that are heavily gatekept, since even in smaller amounts, they can still be enough to define an entire character's kit almost on their own. I am of course talking about energy and speed. Energy is perhaps the single most important stat for almost all of version 4's meta teams, since each of the main archetypes has at least one core character who is desperate for energy. In Elation teams, that's obviously Yao Guang, for having such a strong and kit-defining ultimate, being the only way to access AHA instants on demand that isn't tied to specific endgame bosses or buffs. The fact that she's unable to access it on turn 1 reliably without her signature light cone, and not having a guaranteed 3-turn rotation even with it, means that the Master Diviner is desperate for any sort of additional energy she can get. It's also why Huohuo is the go-to sustain for Elation teams, despite her attack buff being mostly wasted, and the energy not even filling up Silverwolf 999's MMR gauge, for example. 20% max energy is just that valuable for Yao, and by extension, for Elation as a whole. Imagine how valuable 60 energy would be then, by comparison. In follow-up teams, that's definitely Ashfale. Even with his passive 8 energy per ally hit trace, and using his skill once after every ultimate, he still needs at most 12 attacks from other allies to fully refund it back. And with the fact that his follow-up contribution is tied exclusively to his ultimate, any way to shorten how fast he can get it back is a massive increase not just for himself, but for the rest of his ideal team, who also scales off of attack frequency. As such, an injection of 60 energy, lowering that ally attack requirement from 12 to 5, drastically smooths out his rotations, and even lets him be more of a main DPS, instead of standing there and aura farming while his team makes up for his downtime. In Himiko Nova teams, that's without question Himiko Nova herself. Like Yao Guang, her signature light cone improves her energy rotation, and like Ashvale, she's relying on ally actions to regenerate her ults. However, Hime Nova goes one step beyond, with her E1 making both her light cone and ally actions energy regen easier to access by both lowering the requirement and increasing the frequency of her assist skills. These assist skills have a finite limit and only refresh during her ultimate, similar to Astral's follow-ups, hence her gameplay revolving entirely around how consistently she can loop said ultimate. And, well, providing 60 energy every once in a while certainly helps her to close that loop much more often. Even amongst the Fate collab teams, Gilgamesh is entirely built around energy and even generates it passively from other characters' ultimates. So naturally, you can imagine how a character like Tingyun, who not only donates energy with her ult, but also has it ready at the start of battle, serves as the king of heroes well, thanks to her essentially double dipping how much energy she provides him with. While her single target buffs largely restrict her to hypercarry setups, like with Evanescia, solo Ashvale, Himiko Nova, and main DPS skill, her utility quickly falls off once enemy difficulty increases 1 to 2 patches after the DPS of her choice releases. The fact that Tingyun's energy funneling capabilities are second to none all but guarantee that, to this day, she'll find a place in any energy-hungry DPS's team, at least on their initial release. Well, that is if a certain other songbird doesn't usurp her position.
When I use my ultimate on an ally teammate, that teammate will immediately take action and regenerate energy.
To this day, though, Tingyun is still one in a vanishingly small list of characters that can ult immediately at the start of battle. Not to mention the only character in the game who can activate Dance Dance Dance's team-wide advance forward with her set ult. So even though she's mainly an energy support, she has a bit of speed support built in too, with a temporary 20% speed increase on her E1 as well. Of course though, if you're looking for as much speed as humanly possible, mainly to power up one level 999 wolf of the Argentus variety, look no further than yet another version 1.0 4-star in Asta. Not only does Asta's team-wide speed buff increase 999's elation, but it also increases Yao Guang's elation on the same team, which in turn gets distributed to the entire team to again double dip on elation too. I'd also like to mention that 53 speed is a huge number, enough to either let you hit the 200 speed breakpoint without needing either of their speed boost and signature light cones, or reaching a higher speed breakpoint like 266.7 for 4 actions in the 0 cycle with the help of said light cones and Dance Dance Dance. For perspective, the second largest team-wide speed buff is Hyacinth's E2, which is not only significantly lower at approximately 30 speed, but also requires HP loss to maintain, which usually means running a Ren team or having her S1 equipped. And that Eidolon is Giga Omega broken already. The most powerful version of Asta as an elation support though was easily versus Illwish, where each turn was directly translated to punchline, making Asta a better punchline generator than even Sparksy if you can believe it. Still though, even outside of the shill, Asta remains a decent budget option thanks to Silverwolf not really having an essential third teammate after Yao Guang. Considering how she literally offers nothing else to the team besides the speed though, that's pretty impressive, and should go just to show how massive speed buffs are for speed scaling teams. Makes you wonder when our next base kit AoE speed buffer will appear, if ever. Ranmei's puny 10% just ain't cutting it anymore, sadly. Continuing down the theme of 1 to 2 team use characters though, let's look to something more unchangeable by Hoyo, something as they've written. Starting with the more niche case, Pela is back for certain low-cost runs of the Mortonax Blade variety. Her identity as a Nihility unit provides the team with an extra 75% damage at no extra limited cost, which can be pretty useful if you're trying to beat certain stages with the self-imposed challenge of not running any limited units besides Morty himself. Not really relevant for the majority of the player base when better Nihilities like Welt and even OG Silverwolf exist, but Pela's increased value thanks to her inherent identity as a Nihility is a bit reminiscent of the OG Acheron days, back when she really was that mandatory Nihility slot. But of course, we know Sorrel written kits can be more specific than that. How about looking at characters that are directly referenced by name? March 7th has the near-exclusive privilege of being one of 2 4-stars that is explicitly named in another character's kit. The only other character, of course, is Win Dan Hung. Unlike Dan though, whose 5-star SP works better with Himiko's kit, March much prefers her 4-star form when playing with Himiko. Both her shield form in Currency Wars and, crucially to this video, her hunt form in any other game mode. Sorry Himenova, but I don't think Rabakini is making any sort of Evernight synergy real. Sortie March's main advantage as a Himiko teammate is twofold. One, she provides access to Decimation's AoE playstyle, which can be quite useful in Pure Fiction as the only other viable Decimation teammate. Welt is not fantastic versus constantly respawning mobs, where his debuffs fall off quickly in comparison to March's permanent buffs. And at E0, well, Verdict mode requiring 2 ults per assist skill is much harder to achieve compared to Decimation's 9-hit target count, especially in AoE scenarios. In other words, she's good by process of elimination. While that first advantage mainly concerns E0 Himiko though, March's second advantage as a teammate comes with Himiko Eidolons. Hunt March's ability to immediately take another turn every 6 Himiko attacks, after factoring in March's follow-up attack, means that she can burn through assist skills extremely quickly. Not quite as relevant when Himiko has 2 assist skills every ult at E0, but when that jumps up to 3 at E1, and the number of assist skills allies can burn every Himiko turn goes from 1 to 2 at E2, then yeah, having a really fast ally to ensure Himiko Nova can fire off her ult every single turn is really good. In fact, you can even allow for borderline infinite loops, so long as you feed Himiko with a bit of kill or hit energy. First taking Dahlia as her new Shifu back when she was still a strong great carry, and now playing a supporting role once more with the super mom of the Astral Express. How does March keep on taking fiery women as her masters? However, if you remember anything else about Hunt March, it's that her role as the only 4-star follow-up attack spamming Hunt in the game lasted a solid 1 patch. Moze also shares the luxury of being a hit count machine, except he's a lot more consistent, offers a bit more amp, and is much better at abusing Eagle. All of these make him fantastic for not just his supposed replacement in Ashvale, but also with the up-and-coming new Wave and Shireen. Since he only provides crit damage and vulnerability on one target, his single target nature favors Ashvale, while his lack of attack and damage percent buffs makes him a perfect match for Waven's elation damage multipliers. And most importantly, getting 3 follow-ups within 8 attacks, subtracting 1 since remember his own ult counts towards the 9 attack tally and he's usually able to get 1 turn ult rotations. That's a rate that even the top dogs of today would blush at. That's arguably on par with, if not better than, E2 Mortenax Blade, who does about 3 attacks every 11 hits, again counting his 2 follow-ups and his own ult as part of a 14 attack 2 follow-up rotation. And while no one besides opportunity cost and potentially the team size of 4 is really stopping you from just running the both of them together too. But what if I told you there was a unit with an even higher theoretical ceiling? Someone who could potentially follow up after every single attack. And what if I told you they're also a 4-star, one that's been around since the beginning of the game and is available to everyone for free? You might have guessed by now already, but of course, I'm talking about Mini Herta. The glow up of this girl in Pure Fiction needs to be studied. To this day, she has been the Madam's Best erudition slot for the game mode, especially since most characters count Herta's 5 consecutive follow-ups as 1 attack. Not Genius Society member number 83 though. She counts all 5 of them as individual attacks in order to charge up her expensive 220 energy ult. However, with HP inflation on the rise, threatening to kick even E2 the Herta out of a Pure Fiction Zero cycling career, who should arrive from the darkness but Ashvale, whose single target follow-ups can each proc 1 Herta follow-up in turn if planned correctly. Remember, Ashvale is greedy for ally hits too, so the benefit is mutual between him and the doll, meaning that those 3 to 4 additional spins every Ashvale ult also help him regain his next ult too, creating a strong loop that only gets stronger once you go sustainless and add like Tribby into the mix, for example. Even for someone like Acheron, the addition of Mortenax Blade, making every attack generate an Acheron stack, allows Mini Herta to turbocharge / dreams. Heck, the difference is so drastic right now that, for my personal testing, Herta with a Naxos S1 is outperforming my E2 S1 Dan Hung PT and it's not even close. Let that sink in for a bit. Like, sure, I know that is comparing a sustain to sustainless performance, but Herta has 0 amp. The light cone is only giving, like, what, 12 defense shred? That just goes to show how important attack frequency is in modern follow-up teams nowadays. And well, with the Ashblade core being as generous as it is with team buffs, the damage tax for running a 4-star on the team is easily worth paying for the absolutely insane loops Miss Kurukuru herself enables. Heck, drop Acheron or the Herta altogether, and Mini Herta still finds a way onto Ashblade teams, or Ash-only teams, or Blade-only teams. Granted, we are in a shill era right now, and the level of grid generation that follow-ups get to generate is equal to that of DOT Pure Fiction in its blazing prime. Yes, I'd like to re-enter Surging Grit for 2 Herta spins, Trippy Rockets, or Mortanax Blade Storms, please. Maybe this dominant support performance drops off a cliff in 2 patches or so. Heck, that's how it usually goes for 4 stars right now. At best, they get to be temporary fill-in replacements for players who know what they're doing until Hoyo gives us the real 5-star DLC. Ask anyone to replace Sparksy on their relation team with Asta nowadays, as scuffed of a unit as Sparksy may be, and see how much their cycle count skyrockets up. While rare buffs, fitting specific criteria, and providing unmatched amounts of resources for your team is great, if the damage is lacking after the next wave of HP inflation, well, the damage is lacking. No amount of gimmicks can get through a high enough brick wall, unfortunately. Only shiny new supports, or a new DPS that can use the old abandoned toys. And doing so lets them smash through the new obstacle in their path to victory. But, it does beg the question. Acheron had 3 limited Nihility slots, 4 if you count Nova Flares, and as much as 6 if you were really reaching for the wheelchair, or burning down the kitchen. No one uses Pela in a serious Acheron team anymore, like, not even for cost scamming. Just solo Blade at that point, honestly. Fei Xiao finally got her Hunt DLC post-March and Moze with Ashvale, despite not even being path restricted, and even more follow-up support shortly after, even if she is being a bit wheelchaired right now. So, where is the Herta's new shiny Air Edition support? I mean, sure, Anax is great into MOC and Apocalyptic Shadow, but that's still just 2/3 of a limited unit support in endgame, maybe 3/4 if you want to count Anomaly Arbitration. In Pure Fiction, there is not a single Air Edition slot in the entire game. Not Jade, not Argenti, not even Himiko Nova, and of course, not Mr. Feeble Scholar, who reigns supreme for the Herta over her smaller self. Truly a a self-loving queen at heart. It's just too bad that a unit like the Herta gets completely upstaged by her own underling at this point. Thanks for watching.